Hi everybody. So in this video I just want to talk to you very briefly about the discussion boards. So in week 2 you are now transitioning to do what we call an academic discussion post versus the more, I guess you could call it, social posts that we did in week 1, where we introduced ourselves and kind of talked back and forth with each other. Now, one of the things that I did notice is that, and this is a typical thing, this is not unique to your class, but one of the things I did notice is that a lot of students came in, they posted their introduction, and then they basically never came back. So I would ask questions normally to each of you. Some of your classmates will ask questions to each other. And while I see some students coming back in, answering those questions, having little conversations going back and forth, there are some that never do that. So basically, I call that doing the one and done. You come in, you make your post, and then you're out of there. And again, because there was no grade attached to the week 1 introduction, that could be part of the reason that some people don't pay as much attention to it. But definitely the idea there was that you got into the habit of having that engagement, answering those questions, being fairly on top of the responses and kind of managing those conversations as they begin. So as we are working on week 2, transitioning into an academic discussion, keep in mind that you are required to respond to the questions that I pose to you, as well as any questions that your classmates pose to you. So discussion boards are not one and done from this point on. I know that some of you will make your initial posts very early in the week, which is great. I love that because it gives a longer or a broader window of time for those discussions to emerge and to develop. So hopefully those of you that have posted earlier in the week are going to get responses from each other and from other students as they come in. So do make sure that you are coming back in and checking your initial post. Now, there are minimum requirements in the discussion board, and a lot of times students think that if they do the minimum, then they should be getting an A or even a 100. So I want you to be very careful to read the syllabus, read the grading rubric. You do want to read the requirements in the syllabus as well, but read the grading rubric to see what those requirements are. There's always going to be an element in the grading rubric that leaves that grade open to my interpretation, you can call it. So for example, if the rubric says that your post fosters further engagement, or your response posts clearly answer questions, you might think that you've done that, but if I grade you without giving you that full 100 that you're looking for, then that means that there is something that can be improved. And it doesn't always mean that you've done a poor job. Normally when I see someone who has met all of the minimum requirements and gone, and I say even done them very well, they will end up with like a 95 for their discussion grade. The 100 and the extra credit above 100 grades are going to go to the students who go beyond the minimum and really put forth what I would call like outstanding effort. So keep that in mind as you work on your discussion board this week, that our focus is not to do the minimum, our focus is to go beyond the minimum, to excel, to do excellent work. And that's how I define that for this class. Now, another thing that I want to point out is that as you are given reading assignments each week, which you then are answering your questions about in the discussion board, the expectation is that I can clearly see the connections and the references that you're making to those readings in your post. So for example, if you are writing about grit, I should see references to Duckworth. I should see references and citations to specific passages in the video. Or if you did the blueprint for college success, the same thing. I should see references to the authors. I should see citations to the specific passages that you are mentioning. Remember that you use a citation not only when you do a direct quote, but also when you summarize or paraphrase the source. And when you are responding to these specific readings, you should be citing them. Now, that is something that, to be honest, is kind of an expectation, but I understand how that might not be clear, especially to some of you who are new to discussion boards. So that's not something that I'm going to be as stringent about in point deductions this week. However, going forward, I will expect that when you have a discussion board post that you are referencing these specific readings or videos or materials, and that they are being cited at least once in your post. Now, another thing that I want to caution you against with your discussion boards is to not use outside sources. Sometimes I will see people give the dictionary definition of grit, for example, or they will talk about their own experience with their own understanding of what grit means, but they're not referencing or using the information from Duckworth. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't watch the video or they didn't read what they should have read, but they're not bringing that material into the discussion, and that's the point. So make sure that you are not bringing in outside materials other than possibly a scriptural reference. Other than that, you should only be citing the materials that you are assigned to read and that pertain specifically to the question you're answering. And then finally, one more little tip. Some students come into the discussion boards, and when they see two different questions, they decide that they need to answer both of them. And that is not the expectation or the requirement. You should only be responding to one question. And make sure that you are fully answering the questions. Most of these questions are going to have at least two components, sometimes three. Sometimes I see students come in and they give a nice full answer for the first part of the question, and then they ignore the second part. So even if you've already posted, you can come back in midweek and come in and kind of revise or add to your post by adding a comment to your original post. And you can just simply say, oh, I forgot to answer the second part of the question, or I want to add to what I've already posted. You don't need to create a brand new post. You can just reply to yourself, and that's actually the best thing to do. And then also pay very close attention this week when I give grades for this discussion board, because I'm going to give very detailed comments in your grading rubric, but I will not repeat those type of comments week after week. So for example, if you are not citing materials, I'm not going to keep telling you week after week, reminding you that you need to do that. After I've told you once, it'll be something that I'll simply take the points for and assume you've read it and you're just not, responding to the feedback. If you have a question about the feedback, please let me know. That would be a great thing to text about, where I can give you a quick answer, possibly. Also, make certain that, again, you read the feedback fully on the rubric, and you incorporate that into the next discussion post. That's one of the biggest errors or mistakes that I see students do in the discussion board, is that they never read the grading rubric, so they continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. All right, so I hope that those tips help you. You have until tomorrow night to actually post your initial post, we call it. Definitely though, get in there, get a head start, post as early as you can, and start doing your response posts. And remember, the more response posts that you do and the further that you engage with your classmates, the better chance of getting extra credit. And I like to give extra credit, so give me a reason to give extra credit this week, okay? All right, well, you guys have a great week. Reach out to me if you need some extra help or need some clarification on anything, and otherwise I will chat with you later. Bye-bye.